Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I am coloring in Rita Berman's My Journey Through Europe, and I've had a request for this page, so I thought I'd do that today. So this is a little Tuscany scene here, and it's a double spread, so I'm going to get started on the whole thing. I'm going to start out using my Derwent Inktense for this one, purely because it is a fast medium and they're nice and bright colors, so we're gonna have some fun. I think I might use some polychromos later on, but that would probably be in part 2. So here are the colors I'm going to use for the sky. So I want to do like a sunset kind of color, so you can write down these here. I did end up adding in some iron blue, but that's not until the very end, so you don't have to get that one out just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start out here with the very sort of yellow kind of light, exactly where the sun is. So I'm thinking that the sun is setting somewhere directly behind the car, and it's going to be a little bit of a sort of cloud on the background, so I will make like a decent sort of straight line here. So you only see this little part here on the left, but what I'm doing is, as you can see, I'm going over towards the right here, and I'm going to just keep going with this orange until I hit those little trees that are on the right hand side towards the center of this picture. So you'll see there, when you get to those little trees, then there's hills on the other page there, so you can't bring that yellow out any further. So just keep it as high as I'm having it here, and kind of almost do like a line, just very gently straight across. Obviously skip the things that are on the car, but just make sure that you just bring that color all the way over until you're actually hitting land, if that makes sense. I will show you afterwards. So I'm using this cadmium orange now, and I'm gonna see, as you see now, I'm kind of making like a harsh line. So I want there to literally be like a really distinct difference between that yellow area and that orange area, just because I want that orange area to kind of represent like a layer of cloud that's there. So from here on up, I will transition the colors a little bit more gently, but just here we'll just do that line exactly the same as we did with the yellow one. Just keep going, obviously avoiding all the items on the car, and then just keep going until you hit those trees, and just go as far up as I'm going with this one, and again bring it across all the way onto the second page as well. Now working with this crimson, you will be able to pull this one even further across compared to the orange and the yellow, and just make sure that you don't forget those little circles on the plants. As you can see, I'm forgetting a couple. Just go ahead and fill those in. Another thing that I really want to show you today as well is a few different ways of applying your Inktense. So at the moment with this sky background, I'm just doing it the standard way with the pencils. I'm layering down my pencils first, and then I'm going to go ahead and activate with water. But there are another couple of ways that you can use your Inktense pencils. I don't have the blocks, but I'm going to kind of pretend that I do. So I'll show you a little trick that you can use for making your pencils more into the blocks, and you can apply them more like watercolors. So that will help a little bit later when we want to even out some of the tones that we're having here in the sky. Now, just like you did with the other colors, just keep going making these little areas of this fuchsia just all the way across over onto the right hand side of the book. And then we're going to go ahead and add some other colors in between. And I will add more stuff on top. This is literally just the base layers, and we're going to build up a lot. When you see this first activation after I've laid down all the colors, you're just going to go, what on earth? We're going to really get an ugly face with this, but it will get better. And when we finish part 2, I'm hoping we can get this done in 2 parts, but you know me, we may end up with 3. However, being a fast medium, I'm hoping we can get away with the 2. But we can, as I said, we'll just keep a layering on top, and we're going to get some really nice sort of undertones shining through by doing these little areas underneath. Now I hope you are enjoying this video. If you are, I would love it if you take the time to give it a thumbs up. It is one of the completely free ways of helping out my channel, as it does help me bring this video out to a wider audience. And if you're new here, I would really love to have you subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you get notified whenever I post new content. Alright, once I'm finished with this little layer here, I'm going to bring my camera up and see, here you go. So you can see here my yellow, orange and everything, how I've brought it over onto the other side. So it looks exactly the same. You just do exactly the same all the way across and just stopping whenever you hit like a hill or something like that. So let's go ahead and activate this. I'm using my Pentel water brush, and I've got, just off the camera there, I've got a little piece of paper towel. As you can see, it's the exact same paper towel I always use. I just keep reusing it. But what you want to do is you don't want to saturate the paper too much, so just keep wiping it off. And especially with Inktense, if you haven't worked with them before, Inktense is permanent once it's down onto the paper. I've heard occasional stories of people that have been able to lift some color afterwards, but they are made to be permanent. They're actually not watercolor, they are ink. They're by the name, and they do work a little bit differently. The advantage with these are that they're really, really bright. As you can see, as soon as I start activating it, it gets super bright, and you'll see that especially when I get up to these colors up here, they will get really, really intense and super saturated, which is really awesome. And when you start layering these, they really, really shine. So that's what I'm hoping to show you, a few different ways of doing these little Inktense. So as I said, once I've done this one, we'll be at the sort of ugly stage. We'll have lots of, it's going to be a bit patchy, a little bit splotchy, but once I add more layers on top, it will come together much better. So if you're looking now, you can really see the difference between the unactivated and the activated Inktense, and it's just incredible when you add that water how much more vibrant those colors become. They just really, really shine. I'd love to hear, are you using or have you used Inktense yourself, or is this something that you'd like to give a go? One of the advantages obviously with these is that you can definitely get away with smaller sets, because as I'll show you a bit later, one of the other application methods will allow you to really sort of blend your colors off the paper, and you can really, with this even a smaller set, you can get most of the colors that you want just from blending and practicing that way. So you don't necessarily have to get a big set to get a lot out of your Inktense pencils, which is a great advantage. A lot of these sort of more expensive sets, you're almost better off getting a small set of expensive pencils and then practicing blending them and making up new colors by mixing others together than buying a cheap set. Obviously, if you don't want to practice with your mixing and things, getting a cheaper set, yeah, absolutely go for it. But if you really want to learn and blend and get something that's archival, that's going to last longer, your more expensive, more professional range is obviously going to be perfectly fine in a smaller set. Now, I just want to ask you guys, how are you finding the music level today? I have deliberately tried to reduce down the background music a little bit, like the volume level of it, and I'm hoping that it's not too loud. I had a comment that mentioned that they were finding the volume of the music a little bit too loud, and they were trying to juggle the volume of that versus the volume of my voice. So please let me know if I've managed to get there with this one. I am trying. If you need it even lower, let me know. But I'm not going to remove the music. You guys know me. I can't do coloring videos that are completely dead quiet. I can't watch them, so I'm not going to make them myself. But obviously I want to have a happy medium where everyone can be happy. So please let me know what you think, and if you want me to change something, either way. Alright, so this is what it looks like at the moment. This is what I call the ugly stage. It is looking really patchy and everything, but that's okay because we're going to layer more on top and it's going to look much better towards the end. It's not going to be finished, but it's going to definitely look more like the way I wanted to do. So at the moment I've let this dry, by the way. I'm not going straight back over it. You need to make sure that the paper is dry to the touch. If not, going back over it with the pencil afterwards is going to wreck your paper. So make sure you just wait for everything to dry. What you can do is just, do other things in the meantime. Start, the bottom part, but I had the time at this point to leave it to dry, so that's what I did. So I'm just going to finish off these layers. I'm going to go all the way over to the right as usual, and then I'm going to go ahead and start blending this out again. Now I did manage to forget to put my camera on, so you can see that I have already blended from that orange bit up. You may have noticed that I didn't actually add any more of the yellow. I actually found that color was pretty much as good as I wanted it to be at the time. I might add something a little bit later once I've finished off the top part if I need it to be a little bit brighter, but I want it fairly light even though it's yellow, so I've left it for now. But yeah, I'm just going in now and sort of mixing this, or activating this second layer, and as you can see it's going heaps brighter already compared to just that first top layer. So they definitely layer really nicely and you can get really bright results. So you may have noticed that there are these little clouds that are actually drawn in by Rita, and I've just decided to color them exactly the same way that I did the background sky, and I'm having the lighter color down the bottom and then working my way up and making it darker as we go along. I'm not sure if that will be the exact end result. We will see. I only did these two clouds to start with. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with those other two on the other side, but so for now you can leave those other two that's on the right hand page, just because, as I said, I haven't quite at this point decided what I'm going to do with those. So if we end up doing them like these ones, I will let you guys know in part 2. Right, I am done with the sky for now. I will probably work on it a little bit more in part 2, but for now I'm done for this part. So it's time to start with the little Tuscan countryside. So I want to bring in a lot of those warm colors that we have shining from the sky there. So I'm going in first with this mustard, and I'm sort of layering down. I'm going to actually put some of this down on the trees. So as I mentioned at the start, I'm kind of imagining that the sun is setting somewhere directly behind that car, obviously on the other side of the fields, but that means the highlight or the nice glow is going to be on the right hand side of these trees, and for the trees that's on the other side of the page, they will have the highlight on the opposite side. So when I get over on that side, you will see me add this lighter color on the left hand side of the trees that are towards the spine of the book, but I'll do that a little bit later. So I'm just sort of adding in this mustard color a little bit here and there, and then I'm going to use some nice warm tones. I'm going to go with slightly warmer greens. I was looking at lots of reference photos of Tuscany, and I just found that it looked really sort of warm and inviting, and I really want to have those sort of colors come out in this picture. So I love this color as well. This is a baked earth, and it's like this, it gives this sort of red glow sort of thing to the earth. It's actually funny, we get a lot of that here in Australia, that sort of red earth. There's a lot of ochre in the earth here, and iron and things that makes it nice and red. So that baked earth is like perfect. And so I'm using 3 different greens, and I will bring in a 4th green, but not until much later. And as usual, all the colors are down in the description box anyway. I should have said that earlier, but most of you guys would know that by now. So I'm using this leaf green. I'm also going to use a fern, and I'm going to use the spring green. So those are the 3 I'm starting out with. And a bit later, when I'm using a different technique, I'm also going to bring in the birch green. So just like I did with the sky, I will be layering a lot down here and just keep adding different shades of sort of the same color. One of the things with Inktense is that you kind of want to go in light because you can't reactivate it and lighten it up unless you literally put white over the top of it afterwards and then put a new color on it. So you want to go in lighter and then build it up, even if you're literally just layering the same color over and over again. You want to go slow because once you put it down, it's not coming back up again. So definitely try, and also just have another piece of paper on the side and just test things out there first, and just so you don't get a shock when you activate a color. I really recommend swatching your Inktense because, as you can see, it is such a huge difference between what goes down and then what comes out when you activate it. So definitely make sure you swatch it and label them well so that you can use your swatch chart to pick your colors rather than just looking at your pencils. one of the things you can see that I'm doing down here on the fields and things compared to what I did on the sky is that I'm often putting down a color and then activating it almost straight away, and then I'll move on to the next part. Because everything here is more in little pieces, I don't have to have things like overlap as much as I had to do. So sort of with the sky, it's like one big massive area, and you kind of have to just activate it all kind of at once. If not, you're going to end up with even more of an ugly stage, and it'll take a little bit longer to kind of cover it up and add in more layers. So I find here, because everything is in smaller areas, you can just finish off one little area and then activate that one and then move on to the next one, which means you don't have to wait so long before you can keep working. You can kind of just move on to the next area, and once you've done with all the areas there, you can just go back to the start again and you can start adding more color, just because that part that you started with would have already dried, instead of what I had to do with my sky and leave it for, I think I left it for a good 20-30 minutes, I think, before I went back with that second layer. So that's one of the advantages here, in that we have these smaller areas that we can do sort of separately to each other. So I'm just going to use this Willow color again. I think this will probably be the only brown tone that I'm using, at least for this part. And I'll just build up on it. And I'm kind of going to use this for all those little, you can see those little lines here and there. It's almost like it's like a little path in between things, and I kind of want it to be like dirt. So this little brown tone kind of works well for that. I will obviously go back in there and darken things up a little bit more, but again, just like I did with everything else, I will do this in stages. So what I'm going to try to do now is just start adding more and more shadows. So I'm just looking at my picture, finding out where would shadows maybe naturally fall. So I'm thinking like along this road, I'm kind of thinking that maybe that edging on that road might be like a little wall or something, only like a small one, but just like a little bit. So I'm thinking we might have a little bit of shadow on either side of that. So I'm just sort of adding that in, and obviously we'll activate it. I'll keep adding more. So I'm looking at all of those little, like the paths and things. I'm thinking that that might be elevated a little bit, so I'll add more shadows around those. So as you can see, it is slowly starting to come together. I'm getting more depth in there by adding more shadows. So now I decided to add a little bit more mustard to these little hills in the foreground here, just because I thought, you know, the light might be hitting these tops, and then we have it darker down the bottom, and then each of these little teeny hills get a little bit of sunlight just hitting the top of them. I'll probably bring it, I'm thinking those little circles there might be like little flowers or something, and I thought I'd bring in the colours from the sky onto those a bit later and just sort of splash them around a little bit. And hopefully we'll get something that looks a little bit similar to a flower. So I've decided to add this charcoal grey to this little area on this path. I really want to make it like a wall, like a stone wall or something. So I'm hoping this will work because, as I said, once you go in dark with Inktense, it's stuck. It stays. So let's hope that when I activate this, I don't hate it. Yeah, no, I think this will work. I don't hate it so far. That's good. So I said I'd show you a few different ways of putting down Inktense onto your paper. So I thought I'd show you now one of the other methods. So far you've seen me put down the pencil directly onto the paper. Now I'm going to put a little bit of water onto the tip, and I'm going to then place this onto the paper. So you're getting a lot more pigment down when you do in sort of one go. As you can see, I'm going nice and dark in there. Because I have a water brush though, I can just keep going and I can blend it out a little bit. I just wanted these a little bit darker on the side, and I wasn't getting exactly where I wanted with the greens I had. So I ended up bringing in this little birch one just to brighten it a little bit, but at the same time get it a bit darker. So that is what I'm doing at the moment. And very shortly I'll also show you the other way of putting down Inktense, and it involves a little sandpaper block. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and darken up those little foreground hills right underneath the car here. So I'm going to use this little sandpaper block. This is by Stettler, and they really don't cost all that much. I can't remember how much I paid for this, but it's definitely not a lot. So I'm literally just scribbling onto this little sandpaper, so the pigment is now onto the block, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start activating it on there. And the advantage here is that you can reactivate this. It's not drying permanent. So that means you can just keep adding more water if you want to thin it out and make your color more translucent, less opaque, and have a lighter shade of your color. And I just like it. Like, you can go ahead and you can blend colors on there, and you can, like, as I mentioned at the start, like, you can, a bit earlier, maybe not at the start, but anyway, you can, if you have a smaller set, you can mix your colors here, so you don't necessarily need to have such a wide variety of colors, because you can go ahead and scribble your pencils onto the sandpaper block and then start mixing colors together. So as you can see, I'm literally just treating this like it was watercolor pencils or watercolors or Inktense blocks, so that it works quite fast, because you can literally just put it straight down onto the paper without having to double add it. So you don't have to scribble it down first and then go in and activate. You're literally just doing the activation straight away. So that is a good way. And one of the advantages as well is when you're doing it this way, you don't necessarily have to wait until the paper is completely dry before you add a second layer on top. It is a little bit faster because you're not going in with a pencil and rubbing onto wet paper. You're going in with a paintbrush, which is much more gentle, so you're not going to rip apart and shred up the paper that you've got. So I just feel like it's even faster than the Inktense already are, and I'm having more control, and I can add as much or as little pigment as I want. So definitely a trick to try out. So I'm now going to go in and do exactly the same on the sky. So I picked this iron blue just because it's a little bit more muted. It is still a dark color, but it's more muted. And if I do it not too pigmented, I think we will be able to make like a nice layer over the top. So as you can see, look at this. So it's coming over those sort of whiter or lighter areas and sort of covering them up a little bit. So I'm just spreading this out. It's a little bit wet at the moment, but that's okay. And I quite like this. So I'm using a little bit more water. I'm just spreading it out a little bit faster. And I'm thinking I might actually bring this down a little bit further and onto some of that like the fuchsia layers and the like mauve layers as well. So let's see. I'm liking this. So I think this is helping with that. Well, you know, the ugly stage that I talked about. This is helping out with that and making it so that when we're layering down the color, it's not patchy. So it's much more smooth. So I actually quite like the way the sky is turning out now. So we'll see if I end up doing more to it later on, but we'll see. I might do exactly this with the crimson, I think, and maybe work down the bottom a little bit more. We'll see. I just thought I'd quickly remind you to make sure you do this on that second page as well. So just obviously not the clouds that I'm doing, but that background, just make sure you bring that all the way across. So I'm just going to add this same color a little bit to these clouds, and we'll see. I want to darken them up a little bit. I just found them a little bit too bright. They just need a little bit more darkness to them. So I'm just going to finish off these sky areas here with that little bit of a crimson. I'm going to do exactly the same. I've just scribbled it onto the sandpaper, and I'm just adding it on with my paintbrush. And I think that's the end of part 1 for me. So here you go. This is where we're at the moment. So we've still obviously got the car and all the items, and then all of the fields and everything and the buildings on page 2. So I'm hoping, just based on how far we've gotten this time, I think we'll be able to maybe finish it all off in part 2. Let's hope. Thank you all so much for watching with me today. I really appreciate you being here. Have a colourful day, and I will see you again next time.